Good morning, Year Twos. I hope you had a lovely weekend. Welcome back to your second week of remote learning, and this is your math session today where we will be continuing with our learning about fractions. Before we get started today, I thought we'd do some remembering of the things we learnt last week. Last week we started to think about what fractions are, and we learnt that fractions are made when a shape or an amount or a whole thing has been shared into any number of equal parts. It's really important to remember that we are only showing a fraction when something has been shared equally. If the parts are not equal, we cannot say that we are showing a fraction. So if we look at these shapes on my screen, you will notice the ones I have put ticks next to have all been shared equally. They show an equal number of parts. In fact, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them show one part out of two equal parts coloured in. They show a half. This one, the star, shows one part out of one equal parts. It shows a whole thing. These two here, they do have two parts, but they are not fractions because they are not equal in size. This piece of the triangle that is not coloured in is much smaller than the other piece. And as for the heart, this piece that's not coloured in again is much smaller than the piece that has been coloured. So it's important we remember that we can only show a fraction when the whole thing has been shared into equal parts. This was something we need to continue practicing from last week. Also, when it comes to reading and writing fractions as numbers and symbols, we had some vocabulary we needed to remember from last week. This is what a fraction would usually look like, but rather than question marks, we would have numbers written in their place. The top number is known as the numerator. The numerator usually tells us how many parts we are looking at in the whole, usually with our shapes, the number of pieces that are coloured in. The bottom number is known as a denominator, and this tells us how many equal parts the whole shape or the whole amount has been shared into altogether. This number is looking at the entire shape and all of the parts, not just the bits that are coloured in. This is really important to remember as we're moving forward with our learning. So I thought to start with, we could look at these shapes here. They have been shared into equal parts, and we're going to try and write the fractions that would match each shape. So what I'd like you to do is to pause the video and to look at each shape and to think, how many parts are coloured in? That's going to tell me my numerator because those are the parts I'm looking at. And then think, how many parts are there altogether in the whole by counting them on the screen? That will give you your denominator. Have a go at this and then we'll have a look at it together. So I'm just going to try and use my pen tool. Hopefully I can be successful with that. And we are going to try and write the fractions together. Here is our first shape. I want to write the numerator first. This tells me how many equal parts I'm looking at. How many equal parts can you see that have been highlighted in this shape? That's right, just one. Now I need to do my out of, my fraction. And remember the denominator is asking how many parts are in the whole altogether. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I need to pop a 5 on the bottom. This fraction says 1 part out of 5 equal parts. Can you say that with me? 1 part out of 5 equal parts. Fantastic. We can also say this is a fifth because 5 means fifths. Here, how many parts are we looking at? Let's write our numerator. Yes, there are 3 parts coloured in. How many parts are in the whole altogether? Well, I know there's 4 because there's 3 coloured in and there is 1 left over. So this shows me 3 parts out of 4 equal parts. How else can we say this fraction? Do you know? That's right, 3/4, because 4 refers to quarters and we are looking at 3 of them. This last one over here, let's count how many parts we're looking at to see our numerator. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 parts that we're looking at. I wonder how many parts are in the whole. Well, I can see that 6 of my parts was filling half of my circle, so I know there's 6 more parts here because they're equal sizes. So there must be 12 parts altogether. This says 6 parts out of 12 equal parts. So once we understand what numerator and denominator mean, we can write and read any fraction we are given. Now we're going to move on and have a look at today's learning. Here is our in focus task. It says that a cake was cut into 3 equal pieces. Sam and Holly took a piece each. That means they took 1 piece each. So, how much of the cake did they take altogether? Pause the video and talk about this now. Here, I'm going to show you exactly what happened. Let me just change my tool. Great. So, I can say that the cake is the same as having this representation here. I have the whole cake. Over here it was a circle, but here it's a rectangle. And I have 3 slices. Well, over here I also had 3 slices, and those slices are equal, whether they are in my circular cake or in my abstract representation here. What happened was we gave a slice to Sam and a slice to Holly. We wanted to find out how much of the cake they ate altogether. We could say they ate 2 slices, which would be correct, but they ate 2 slices out of the 3 slices that there were altogether. So have a think what we know about the cake and how many equal parts there are. Well, we know the cake is made up of 3 equal parts. How many of those parts were taken by Holly and Sam? That's right, they took 2 equal parts. So I wonder how much of the cake they took all together as a fraction. This is what I would like you to look at now and try and record some of your ideas down for me. So I've got the representation here again. I would like you to try and explore what fraction of the cake Holly took. How would you write this? How many parts out of how many equal parts did she take? To help you write your fraction, I've written in the box a reminder for what numerator and denominators are. Once you've told me how much Holly took, can you tell me what fraction of the cake Sam took? And then how much of the cake was left over? And finally, to answer our question from the In Focus task, at the bottom it says how much cake did they both take all together? Those are your 4 questions I'd like you to have a go at answering now. Please pause the video to have a go at this. Great, and we're going to have a look at this together. So here I have that same drawing, but I thought about how much each slice is worth as a fraction. Now we know there are 3 pieces in the whole, so my denominator for each of my slices must be a 3 because there are 3 parts altogether, and I know the bottom number in the fraction must show me how many parts there are in the whole altogether. When I think about how much Holly took, I'm looking at only 1 of the pieces. So I know that Holly took 1 piece of cake out of 3 equal pieces of cake. Sam took exactly the same amount. He took 1 slice out of the 3 equal slices. And then left over was exactly the same again. There was that final piece left. Now, when we have a 3 as our denominator on the bottom of the fractions, we call these thirds. So, Holly took 1/3, Sam took 1/3, and there was 1 more third left over. Give yourselves a thumbs up if that's what you said earlier. Together, they must have taken 2/3 in total, because Holly's third and Sam's third would be 2 of the pieces out of the 3 equal pieces. This is how I write 1/3. Perhaps you could record on your whiteboard what you think 2/3 would look like. Give yourself a pat on the back if you had a 2 as your numerator and a 3 as your denominator. We've got 2 parts out of 3 equal parts. 1/3 add 1/3 makes 2/3. They took 2/3 altogether. Today, we are learning to be able to recognise, find, name and write thirds. So we're going to be looking at shapes that have 3 equal parts because we're looking at thirds. Our denominator for today, the bottom number on our fraction, is likely to be 3. Let's have a look at these shapes and decide which of these fractions they could belong to. This is recapping not just today's learning, but also the other learning we already know. We know the bottom number, the denominator, tells us how many equal parts the shape has been shared into. So here's our first shape. How many parts is this whole shape shared into? Yes, it's shared into 2 equal parts. So which of these fractions could it belong to? Well, it can't belong to 1 part out of 3 equal parts because there aren't 3 equal parts in the shape. Yes, so it must belong to 1 part out of 2 equal parts because there are 2 equal parts in this shape. I'm going to pop it here underneath our fraction 1/2. Are these parts equal? So can we say that this is a fraction at all? No, let's pop it in the bin. That can't belong to any of those fractions. Let's have a look at the next one. Are these equal parts? Fantastic. And how many parts are there? 3, yes. So which of our fractions must it belong to? That's right, we're going to pop it over here. 1 part out of 3 equal parts. There are 3 equal parts. We're not sure how many we're looking at yet, but the denominator must be 3. Where would this one go? Fab job, it's going to go over here with the quarters because there's 4 of the parts. Are these equal? They are. So where's this one going to belong? That's right, again 4 equal parts, so it must go over there. Are these equal? They are, aren't they? So where am I going to pop it? Underneath the half. Fantastic. Are these equal parts? So where am I going to put them today? Yes, there's 3 parts in the whole, so they must belong over here. Does this shape show equal parts? It doesn't. So can it belong to any of our fractions today? No, let's pop it in the bin. And what about this last one? In the bin? Why should it go in the bin? That's right, the parts are not equal, so it cannot show a fraction. Fabulous. Now having a look, I've coloured some of those shapes in. So I wonder if we can agree which of the shapes is showing the fraction written above it. Let's read this fraction together. We have 2 parts out of 3 equal parts. Which of these shapes is showing 2 parts out of 3 equal parts? Yes, I agree, it's this one that's showing 2 parts out of 3 equal parts because 2 of them have been shaded in and there are 3 parts altogether. Let's read this fraction together. 1 part out of 2 equal parts. Which of these fractions show that image? Which of these images show that fraction, sorry? Yes, it must be this one because there's 1 part coloured in and there's 2 parts in the whole. Fantastic. Let's read this fraction together. We have 3 parts out of 4 equal parts. Which of these fractions shows 3 parts out of 4 equal parts? Is it this shape? No, why not? Oh, because there's only 2 parts coloured in. So it must be this one here where we have 3 of those equal parts coloured in and there are 4 altogether. Today, for your independent learning, you're going to work through the following worksheet. Your first activity asks you to circle the pictures that show 1/3 or 1 part out of 3 equal parts. So you're looking for the shapes that have 3 parts in the whole and one of them is coloured in. Remember, those parts have to be equal. Then on the next one, you need to colour to show the fraction that's written underneath. This one wants you to colour 1 part out of 2 equal parts. The next one wants you to colour 1 part out of 3 equal parts. I wonder if you can see what the last sheet would like you to colour in. And then your final page on the next, your final question, on the next page is to try and tell me what fraction has been coloured in, writing your fraction as numbers. Remember the numerator and the denominator. That's going to help you today. Give your learning your best shot you can today. We look forward to seeing how you've been getting on. And then we'll see you again next time when we come back for more fractions learning. Enjoy your learning today, Year 2s, and see you soon. Goodbye.